Welcome back to The Explainer, where we connect the dots on the really big ideas. And today, we've got a wild one for you. We're going to explore this really provocative link between our schools, our hospitals, and, believe it or not, the AI that's supposed to save us from all our own broken systems.
Yeah, think about that for a second. That quote from Dr. Robert Watcher, it just perfectly captures this bizarre world we live in when it comes to modern medicine. I mean, on one hand, it's a place of just breathtaking miracles, but on the other, it's filled with these frustrating, almost unbelievable contradictions. I mean, think about it. We've got gene therapy and robotic surgery, right? But at the same time, the healthcare industry is one of the biggest users of fax machines in the entire country. We can literally put someone on a heart-lung bypass machine, but then their doctors are spending hours on what they call pajama time. Just doing data entry at home late into the night. So the tech, it's a miracle. But the system that's supposed to deliver it, it's just broken. And that's the big question, isn't it? Why?
Well, to find the answer, we actually have to look somewhere you would probably never expect. We have to go back to the classroom, because it's right there in what some have called the factory for our minds that the basic wiring for these broken systems was first put into place. Thinkers and educators like John Taylor Gatto, and this guy was a New York City Teacher of the Year, so he knows what he's talking about. They argue that for like over a century, our school system hasn't really been designed for education. It's been designed to create compliant, manageable workers for an old-school industrial economy. It basically teaches us to be indifferent, to look to authority for approval, and, just to wait around to be told what to think. The Brazilian philosopher Paulo Freire had a great name for this. He called it the banking model of education. Think about it. Information gets deposited into students' brains like they're empty bank accounts. The goal isn't about exploring or thinking critically. Nope. It's just about memorizing stuff so you can spit it back out on a test. And what this does from a really young age is condition us to just be passive receivers of information, not active creators. And the effect this has on our innate, natural creativity, it's absolutely staggering. There's this famous long-term study. It was originally done for NASA, of all places, and it tracked something called divergent thinking, which is a really key part of creativity. They followed a big group of kids as they grew up. Okay, get this. At age 5, before the whole factory model really digs its claws in, a phenomenal 98% of these kids tested at the genius level for this kind of creative thinking. 98%. That's almost everybody. But then, after just 10 years inside that school system, that number absolutely plummets. We're talking only 12%. Just 12% of the exact same kids still test at that genius level. What happened? And by the time we're adults, that number, it falls to a measly 2%. So you see, we're not born uncreative. We are systematically trained out of our natural-born ingenuity by the factory itself. It's like the educator John Holt said, right? We basically trade a kid's natural love of learning for a gold star, a good grade. We learn that checking the box is way more important than actually understanding anything. And it's this exact mindset, this idea of playing the game for the reward instead of for the real goal, that we're now seeing play out with just devastating consequences inside our hospitals.
Okay, so let's really connect these dots, because the habits we pick up in school, they don't just, disappear when we get a diploma. They basically become the default operating system for how we act and think as professionals.
And nothing illustrates this better than this one story. The Journal of the American Medical Association actually published a crayon drawing from a 7-year-old girl. And in the picture, it's her mom, and her sister, and then way over in the corner is the doctor with his back turned to all of them, just typing on a computer. And the funny thing is she drew a smile on his face, which, as Dr. Watcher pointed out, is probably the only part of the drawing that wasn't accurate.
You see, electronic health records were supposed to make everything better, right? But what they actually did was create these totally messed up incentives. It became more important to document the visit in a very specific way so you could bill the insurance company for more money than it was to actually diagnose and help the patient. It's literally the game of school all over again. You have these brilliant professionals playing for the score, not for the win. And in healthcare, the win is supposed to be the patient's health. So into this deeply broken, factory-wired mess comes this incredibly powerful new tool, artificial intelligence. So the question is, could this be the giant leap we've been waiting for? Is this what's finally going to fix things? Well, the first, most obvious win is something called an AI scribe. And it's so simple. A doctor just puts their phone down on the desk, they record their conversation with a patient, and poof, At the end, a perfect clinical note is just automatically generated. This one simple tool is already proving to be an absolute game changer. It frees doctors from that soul-crushing pajama time data entry and lets them, actually look at their patients again. The response from some doctors has been just pure, unadulterated relief. But AI's potential, it goes way, way beyond just taking notes. In one really remarkable study, researchers gave an AI a task that cardiologists are literally taught is impossible. They asked it to find complex structural heart disease using only a simple electrocardiogram, an EKG. So they put the AI up against 13 expert human cardiologists. The humans, they were about 64% accurate. I mean, that's not much better than flipping a coin. And the AI, it was 78% accurate. It was literally seeing crucial patterns in the data that were totally invisible to the trained human eye.
So, okay, the tech is a miracle. Problem solved, right? We can all go home. Well, unfortunately, this is where our story comes full circle. Because, no, it's not nearly that simple. And this brings up a really troubling question. And it's about this phenomenon called de-skilling. It's this idea that, are we becoming so reliant on these amazing tools that we're actually starting to lose our own skills, our own expertise? And the scary part is, the research shows this is already happening. There was a study where they gave experienced gastroenterologists an AI assistant, to help them spot suspicious things during a colonoscopy. Well, after just 3 months of using this AI crutch, when they took it away, the doctor's own skills without the AI had gotten significantly worse. So here's the bottom line. Technology is never just about the technology itself. It's always implemented by us, by humans, inside of human systems. And these systems are shaped by everything: culture, greed, lawsuits, just plain old inertia. And who's running these systems? People who are all products of that same factory model of school. We've all been trained to follow the rules, to check the boxes, not to question the system itself. And that is the one problem that AI, no matter how powerful it gets, just can't solve on its own.
And this all points to a really profound challenge for all of us. Before we can ever truly benefit from a revolutionary tool like AI, maybe we first need to fundamentally unlearn all the lessons that the factory taught us. Maybe we need to totally rewire how we think, how we learn, and how we work together. And that's a challenge that goes way beyond just writing better code.